Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Verily all praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord of the heavens and the earth, the one who created us all for the sole purpose of worshipping Him. We praise Him alone. We seek His help and His forgiveness alone. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil within our own selves and from the evil of our own actions. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, there is no one that can misguide. And whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves to be misguided in this life, there is no one that can guide again back to the straight path. I testify none has the right to be worshipped, to be followed and obeyed except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the servant of Allah, His last and final prophet and messenger who was sent for the whole of mankind. And I testify that whoever disbelieves in Islam and dies will be in the hellfire forever. And the only way of life that is acceptable to Allah, to God Almighty, is Al-Islam. Amma ba'd. Today, my dear brothers and those who are listening online, the topic I've labelled as, am I an extremist? Obviously, after those who are listening, you will have to judge for yourself. I'm sure some of you already know the answer to that. But we'll see, because there's ikhtilaf on this issue. There are some people who will say yes, and other people will say no. Now let's look into this issue, because obviously nowadays we live in a world where many labels are being thrown around. Many people are given labels. Sometimes that label is befitting for that particular person, and sometimes that label is not befitting for that person. But someone who maybe has a hatred towards that person, he would give him a false label, like the way they gave the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam many labels to tarnish his good character, etc., because of the hatred of the disbelievers at that time. So firstly, this term extremist, firstly we need to look at, my dear brothers, is what exactly is an extremist. Because I guarantee you go out and do a survey of the public and you ask them what is an extremist, I guarantee you will get many different answers, because it is not something that it's a term that's come about recently. And secondly, this term that's being used, is it being applied correctly? Is it applied to the people who deserve to be labeled like this? And also we need to look at who came up with this term, and for what reason did they come up with this term. And to start off, I just want to mention an incident that happened a few weeks back. It was at one of the Islamic roadshows, and this kafir man came up. And you always have to have that kind of awareness, because a lot of police, they like to pretend, like they're interested in Islam in order to entrap the Muslims. And sometimes you can just sniff the snitch, the kafir, So anyway, he comes on the dawah, he pretended to speak about Islam. Obviously, Allah knows best whether he was some police officer or whatever. And he was asking her about Islam. And he goes to me, do you regard yourself as an Islamist? So I thought, Islamist? I said to him, what is an Islamist? So I can't, how can I label myself and say, yeah, I am? I don't even know what that is. What is an Islamist? Is it someone who follows Islam? If it is, then I'm an Islamist. But you see, what is this term, Islamist? Because you might think, it's Islamist. Maybe they think it's someone who follows Islam. But you see, sometimes a term, my dear Muslims, someone might use the same word, but in your mind it means something, and his mind it means something else. You see, like obviously there's one term, I think I put it in here. Yeah, once there was a talk that Sheikh Umar he gave, and the brother was telling me, obviously I never had the blessing of meeting the Sheikh. And one of the brother, he went up to the Sheikh, I think it was a young youth, you know, and he said to the Sheikh, that talk was bad. And the Sheikh got really up, he was upset. He's like, you know, bro, I'll try my best, you know. But you see, in the mind of this youth, obviously in the street, when this term is being, that's bad, that's wicked, it's seen as that's something really, really good. But obviously, the Sheikh, someone especially, is not aware of this type of a language, and obviously someone who's come from abroad. You see, he didn't understand that. So if somebody told him it's bad, in his mind that term means it's not good. You see, so you see, in someone's mind, the same word, you can have two different understanding. So obviously this. So I said straight away to the guy, "What is an Islamist?" So he said, "Okay, an Islamist is someone who follows a political Islam." I said, "What do you mean someone follows a political Islam?" In Islam, there is siyasa, there is politics, there is a governing system, there is a head of state. You know, some of the ulama of the past, they describe politics as commanding good and forbidding evil. Politics is managing the affairs of the people. We have such systems in Islam. So what do you mean there's a political Islam and there's an Islam with no politics, no governance? You can't have a non-political Islam. It don't make sense. So this term itself, a political Islam, is the kuffar, they're creating it, this Islamist term. There's no such thing as you can have a non-Islam with no governing system or no siyasa in it. You see, so they've come up with this word. So I said to him, look, well, in Islam, there is politics. But obviously, generally, when we say politics, in the mind of most people, they think obviously parliaments and lawmakers, obviously that kind of politics, if that's your understanding of it. No, Islam is completely against that. We don't believe in man-made laws, in the people making laws. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has sent down the divine law, and it's merely we have to implement it and follow it. So obviously, this is a response I gave, you know. And one of the reasons why they come up with these terms, my dear Muslims, is to create this division, And we know the age-old method of the manhaj of the kuffar, to divide and rule, to divide the people up. You see, so this one he's secular Muslim, and this one he's Sharia Muslim. He don't believe in the law of Allah should be absent from the running of the state of the country, etc. So this is one of the reasons why they come up with these terms, is to divide us, to put a wedge between us, to separate us, and to separate certain aspects of Islam from our understanding. And I was just looking up this term, in fact, on the internet. What is an extremist? And funny enough, because it's not a term that is set in stone, it's like is known, like it's been around for a long time. That's why you'll come across many different definitions of this term. Firstly, the Oxford Dictionary. Let's see what this one says about what is an extremist. It says here, the extremist is someone who believes strongly in Islam. especially who believes that Islam should influence political systems. So someone who strongly believes in Islam, as opposed to what? Someone who just about holding on to Islam. Every Muslim should strive to strongly believe in Islam and follow Islam as best as he can. And obviously it says, especially the one who believes that Islam should influence political systems. The Prophet ﷺ, when he came with Islam, the divine law and the Sharia, even the disbelievers at that time, they knew that what he had come with is a threat to their own system that they used to have at that time. And indeed, you see the Sharia and the divine law that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came with, it never lived in coexistence of the law of the Quraysh and the Mushrikeen. Indeed, you can't in any state or any authority. There has to be one sole authority. You can't, like here in the UK, you can't have two governments. It's not gonna work. And two law and order. How is it gonna work? No place like this on the earth has something like this. Well, obviously, there has to be one authority in that place, or else they'll be fighting always at each other and contradicting each other. So this in itself, it obviously don't make sense. And Islam, my dear Muslim, is not. Many times we use the term, we just say it's a religion, but really it's not correct. Really, rather it's a deen. It's a complete way of life. It's not just a personal relationship between you and God. So at home, I worship Allah, and I go to the masjid. It's just something personal. So we don't have this concept that it's a secular deen, i.e., in the governing of man's affairs in the public, we don't bring religion into it. This is what secularism does. It separates the religion affecting the aspects of, for example, of how the society is run. So, they don't bring religion into it. The people there, they make the laws. So if you want to worship God, you worship God in your church, in your masjid, in your synagogue. But when it comes to making the law and order and how the community and the state and the government should run, they say, no, God has no say here. This is what essentially secularism is. And obviously no Muslim can accept that. No Muslim can accept that. Islam is not just inside the masjid. Islam should be in the masjid, and it should be outside the masjid, dictating in every aspect of our life. That's why we have, the zakat system. You see how the wealth is distributed and collected. We have all the system, the economic system of Islam, the judicial system of Islam. We have the political system of Islam, because Islam has taught us everything, how to run our affairs, how to run our society. So that's the Oxford Dictionary's definition of what is an extremist. Now coming to Wikipedia. Obviously, I believe this man's on Wikipedia. MashaAllah, that's a major achievement. Okay, what does Wikipedia say about what is this definition is the Oxford one is about who is an Islamist. Yeah, so someone who strongly believes in Islam, especially one who believes Islam should be influenced political systems. Now, Wikipedia says that an Islamist views emphasize the implementation of Sharia. So the Islamist is the one who believes that Sharia has to be implemented. Yeah, you can't just forget about Sharia. So if an Islamist, you believe it has to be implemented, as opposed to the non-Islamist, he believes he can just ignore Sharia, he can just ignore the law of Allah. And they say, so the Islamists, they emphasize the implementation of Sharia and a pan-Islamic political unity. So basically a Khilafah system, Muslim living under one land, under one rule, under one law and order. And of a selective removal of non-Muslim, particularly Western military, economic, political, social, or cultural influences in the Muslim world that they believe is incompatible with Islam. So an Islamist, he believes that Western military, Western economics, Western political, Western social or cultural influences, they shouldn't influence in the Muslim world. And just listen to that definition. So it shouldn't have any effect in the Muslim world. Well, of course, it's the Muslim land. What do you mean? Of course it shouldn't have any effect in the Muslim land, because it's the Muslim land where the Muslims run their affairs, the Muslims have their own law and order. And so obviously but an Islamist, he believes that no, this is Islam, this is the Islamic governing system, this is the Khilafah, We can't have any kufr laws here. We can't have Western values. We can't have your way of life in democracy. We are Muslims. We live by Sharia. But if you believe like this, according to Wikipedia, you have got the thinking of an Islamist. You see, so and these terms, my dear brothers, they come up with these terms for a reason. Obviously, most people's mind, kuffar, when they hear the term, oh, this man over there, he's an Islamist, they're automatically thinking bad. They're thinking negative. This man is some kind of a criminal. They're trying to plant these seeds in their head. Or this man is a radical. Even the term itself, even David Cameron and stuff, they talk about radical changes. He has radical views. But when you think, oh, this man over there, Abu Halima 94, is a radical. But they try to use that term to say, look, this man is involved some kind of unacceptable behavior, unacceptable views. This man is involved in some kind of criminality, some criminal thoughts. So this is one of the reasons why they use these terms. And obviously, my dear brothers, this is one of the ways they use these terms to fight Islam and fight the Muslims, to create these new terms to divide the Muslims. And if you look today, subhanallah, compared to 5-10 years ago, look how many terms have come about. And it's like every time I hear a new one come out. The other day I heard one, some kafir woman saying, oh, they believe in Islamism. I was like, it's like another one. I was just thinking to myself, what? Another one? Another one added to the list. What the hell is Islamism? What the hell is Islamism? You think Judaism, it's following the Jewish religion. And so Islam is following the Islamic religion or Islamic deen. So what is Islamism? That's what I'm saying. They created this term. It never existed before. No one ever used this term. This is another invention of the kuffar. And look at the terms, my dear Muslim. I just try and list some of the ones that they've been, throwing around. And they use these terms freely. They throw a label anyone. Islamist, extremist, fundamentalist, jihadist. That's another crazy one. The Hajjist or the Siamist, the Salahist. So the one who believes in jihad, who does jihad, he's a jihadist. To the extent that I've even put in my notes that twice, jihadist twice. Look, I'm not even lying. It's ridiculous. So, number one, radical Islam. What's radical Islam? Like I said, you can give a talk at each of one of these things. What's radical Islam? You see, if I do a survey just amongst a few brothers here, so what's radical Islam? He has no idea. Brother, what's radical Islam? Or what do you think radical Islam is?
The Islam that opposes their democracy.
The Islam that opposes their democracy. What do you think radical Islam is, bro? You see, you have to think about it. What could it be? We're guessing. We never came up with this term. It's the kuffar that came up with it. And the thing is, they have their own definition. They have their own definition of what these terms mean. So another term, radical Islam. He follows radical Islam. This one, he's a hate preacher. Literally. What's a hate? He's a hate preacher. Okay, and a classic. I think it was the same kafir on the roadshow. He was talking about hate preacher. I said to him, well, do you like the Taliban? He goes, obviously, he got caught out. He can't say I hate him. Because I'm a hate preacher. So I said, well, I can't remember what he said, but he didn't say I hate him or anything like that. I said, so I said, would you have dinner with them? And obviously this kafir is like, yeah, I wouldn't mind having dinner with the Taliban. But is a hate preacher. What do you mean? Every single person preaches hate, I guarantee you. Even if you go to David Cameron, say, do you like ISIS? You know, I hate him. Probably say, he'll say something along the hate lines. He may not use that word. You don't like them. They're fighting them. So what, is he a hate preacher now? We hate shaitan. We hate preacher. You know, we hate, you know, those people who, you know, call us to disobey Allah. We hate the disobedience to Allah. We hate, you know, the kuffar. We hate the kuffar for the sake of Allah. Because why? Because they disbelieve in Allah. They say Allah has a son. They insult Allah. They make statues and say this is Allah. Every single person preaches some hate. He hates Marmite. This man is a hate preacher. He's coming out on TV and he's saying Marmite. Who the hell would eat Marmite? It's nasty, bro. So he's hate preacher. But like I said, this is what comes. If you have this concept of love and hate, al-wala wal-bara, that you can't. We love the Muslims. We love the Sharia. We love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We hate the shirk. We hate the kufr. We hate the kuffar. We have bara towards them. You know, this man's hate preacher. But if you look to the Taghut and Cameron and Obama, day and night they're preaching hate. Hatred towards the so-called extremists, the so-called fanatics, the so-called jihadists. They're preaching hate day and night. So, and this title itself, my dear brothers, extremist, it's not from Islam. Obviously, the Muslims never came up with this title. And there's no actual title like this in Islam, extremist. However, there is concept in Islam of something called ghulu, of exaggeration. And this is in like the good acts, where someone could exaggerate in the good acts. And I'll give you, inshallah, a few examples of this. There was once an incident of 3 men. And one of the men, they said that I will offer prayer throughout the whole night. All night I will just pray. So normally the sunnah is obviously to, after Isha, to have sleep for a bit and then to wake up late in the night, pray tahajjud, etc. But to have some sleep. So this man, he said every night he'll pray all night, no sleep at all. And another man, he said, I will fast throughout the year and will not break my fast. So every single day he will fast. And another man, he said, I will keep away from women and I will never marry. Obviously, these 3 people, they were trying to, they thought in their mind was trying to be extra pious, trying to exaggerate really in the good deeds. So they were doing a form of what we call ghulu, of this exaggeration. And when the Prophet ﷺ, he heard this, he said to them, are you the same people who said so and so? You see, that's very important. Verification, you see. Subhanallah. And he said, by Allah, I am more submissive to Allah and more afraid of Him than you. Yet, I fast and I break my fast. I sleep, I do sleep, and I also marry women. You see? And whoever does not follow my sunnah is not of me. Subhanallah. So you see, these 3 people, they try to go beyond what the kind of the limit, if you like, the Prophet ﷺ advised. So that, don't think that you're being extra pious by not marrying women. The Prophet saying, here, I marry women. He's the Prophet of Allah. You see. But these people try to go beyond what is, how can I say, if the good boundary, if you like. And they would try to do so out of this piety. In the same way, like the Christian priests, they practice celibacy. They think out of piety, they don't get married to women and have relationship. But in fact, it's from the piety and the fear of Allah to get married. The Prophet got married. And where did you get this from? Allah SWT never forbade you from getting married. You forbade yourself. You thought you've been extra holy, extra pious by not getting married to women. And you end up being extra evil because of that. Because man's natural nature, Allah SWT made us to have man to be attracted to women and have relationship. But you see, they went to exaggeration and they tried to do this ghulu, tried to say out of be more pious, we're not going to get married. But rather it is the more pious to be married than to do this behavior. And I just remembered Sheikh gave this example of this scholar a long time ago. The wisdom of the alim. He went into they was going to have a debate, this Muslim scholar with some Christians scholars, and he went in there, and the first thing he said to the priest, he said, how are your wives and children? Obviously they're shocked by that. They said, you know it's not, they said, you know it's not befitting for us to have wives and children. And the alim said, then how is it befitting for Allah to have a son? And that's it, debate finished. Defeated, completely defeated. Another kind of form of what can be resemble close to extremism, a similar thing, but not exactly extremism, but there's a concept in Islam called at-takalluf. Yeah, at-takalluf is like when someone makes something taklif, something make like a responsible upon himself, which Allah never made responsible on him. Yeah. So, like for example, I remember Ustad Abu Bara, he gave this example of like the one who wants to recite Quran. Now he thinks, look, I haven't mastered all the tajweed rules and I've not become like proper alim in Quran recitation. So he thinks, I'm not going to recite Quran until I proper mastered everything. This is someone who's making taklif something upon himself that Allah never made taklif upon himself, upon the person, you see. Rather, obviously, he should, as much as he can, and much have knowledge, obviously he should learn about the tajweed rules, but as much as he can, at the meantime, he should try his best to recite the Quran, you see. And that's why there's one hadith he even mentions that the one who recites with difficulty, he gets even more reward. But this person, you see, he will try and make something a responsibility upon himself which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never made him accountable for. So this is an example at takalluf. Also, if we look at the word we mentioned many times, taghut. Taghut linguistically comes from the word tagha. It means to exceed the limit. You see, because when we say the word extremist, obviously every single Muslim, we believe there is a limit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the only one who can set the limit. He can only set the boundary of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And that is part of the problem where people, they set their own limits. So this is the problem with the democracy and the man-made laws. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set a limit. This is the limit, don't cross it. Democracy comes along and wipes that limit away. And they set their own limit. This is what democracy does. So like for example, if we give the example of the polygamy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set the limit 4 wives. They wipe that limit off. They don't accept it. And they put another limit, 1 wife. It's actually illegal in the UK to have more than 1 wife. I don't know if you know. Actually a criminal offense, subhanAllah. It's a criminal offense. But if 2 men want to get married and adopt children, it's halal. La hawla wa quwwata illa billah. Obviously, from the word tagha, the one who exceeds the limit, you see. Obviously, the kuffar, like the taghut, is the one he exceeds the limits of Allah by committing the shirk and calling people to worship him. So the word extremist, obviously the kuffar came up with it, and they gave their own definition towards it. And now let's just look at the word, what the word extremism means. Firstly, Wikipedia. It says literally driving something to the limit, to the extreme. Nowadays, the term is mostly being used in the political or religious sense for an ideology that is considered to be, and they put in brackets, by the speaker. You see? But for an ideology that is considered to be far outside the acceptable mainstream attitudes. So basically, what the mainstream, what the majority of people have, the view they have, basically they're saying, if you then come up with a different view, you are seen as extreme. So obviously, here in the UK, majority of people are kuffar. They don't believe in Islam. So naturally, someone who says, look, I believe in one God, I believe in Sharia, I believe that, women must cover up, men, must keep beards and pray 5 times a day, they can't free mix, can't have boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. So in a majority where people have the same view of democracy and British values, the fact that you are like the odd one out, it's almost making you fit into that definition as an extremist, as following extremism. And they know one of the Muslim are what, 2% of population in the UK, 2%, the minority. So you see, even that on that sense is trying to say about those people who have that, because we know the Muslim voice, the call for Islam is the minority voice in the UK. So that's Wikipedia. And the real definition, you got to listen to this, is, you see, David Cameron's definition. David Cameron doesn't submit to that definition given by Wikipedia. He's got his own definition of what extremism is. Let's listen to what he has to say. And this was from a speech he gave, I think, in July this year. He said, this is a part of a long speech he gave in Birmingham. He said, we are all British. We respect democracy and the rule of law. We believe in freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of worship, equal rights regardless of race, sex, sexuality, or faith. So basically, my dear Muslims, what he's saying is, if you don't believe in these things, because he's given a definition, if you're against those things, you have got extremist thinking. So if you just break down, we respect democracy. We say again and again, democracy is a satanic system. It is a load of rubbish. It is one that violates the rights of Allah, where the people, they make the laws, whereas we believe that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes the laws. Democracy is a contradiction to Islam, is against Islam. So we don't respect democracy. We don't respect the kufr and the shirk, never. No Muslim can accept democracy. And it says we respect democracy and the rule of law. In general, we respect the rule of law if it's Sharia, yeah. If it's Sharia, you must respect that law, but not man-made laws. There's no respect for man-made laws. There's no respect for kufr and shirk. And say we believe in freedom of speech. So someone who don't believe in freedom of speech, what's wrong? You must be an extremist. You must have the telltale signs of an extremist. Do you have freedom to say what you like? Do you have the freedom to insult your mother? Do you have the freedom to insult Allah? No, you don't. The funny thing is, when Muslims exercise that so-called freedom, they say, no, you can't say that. Hate preacher. You can't say that. This is glorification of terrorism. This is incitement to murder. I've always said we have freedom to say what we like. No, you don't. It's like Henry Ford. We give this example. Henry Ford, he once said, you can have any color you like as long as it's black. Which means you can't really have any color you like. So they want to push this idea that people you're free. Because in reality, the people are enslaved to the Taghut. You don't have the freedom to say whatever you like. If a white man were to go on the street and call a black man the N-word and say, look, freedom of speech, they're not going to accept that. This man will get arrested for racism or something. But you see, when it comes to insult Islam, attacking Islam, you see that with the recently Charlie Hebdo case, they say, look, this is freedom. This is freedom of expression. So when it comes to Islam, it's freedom. However, and the brother mentioned, when the same kuffar from Charlie Hebdo, they did a cartoon insulting the Russian plane. They didn't all, and the Russians got upset. They didn't all come out and start defending Charlie Hebdo and say, look, freedom of expression, etc. They were upset about it. You see, so when it comes to belittling Islam, insulting the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it's freedom of speech. But when Muslims want to use that and attack their own values, democracy, British values, no, you can't say that. You see, so there is no freedom of speech. And Allah SWT never gave us the freedom to use our tongue to say, utter whatever we like. We are accountable for everything that we utter. You see, we can't use our tongue, use foul language, etc. Speak about zina, etc. So this is one thing he mentioned about freedom of speech. And he said freedom of the press. So the people who are okay, they believe in freedom of press. And the brother mentioned about this kafira lady secretly recording Muslims. We are people, public da'is. We invite the media to come record in many of our events. It's dawah for us. But don't come secretly in with a camera. Many times we're happy for you to invite the media to just come to some of our conferences, talk, roadshows, etc. Many times we've had media on the roadshow in our conferences right here. But we'll not accept someone come sneaking in a camera to come and. Why are you doing that for? Why are you doing that for? You don't have the freedom, and they say, look, it's freedom of press. You don't have the freedom to spy on people. The media is just, hiding in your garden shed. Freedom to you can't do that. You can't install a camera in my house and say, look, freedom of press. I have to report the news. No one will accept that. They say so Cameron says as well, freedom of worship. So if you're against freedom of worship, you have got extremism sign. You must believe that people have the right to worship whatever they like. Worship Allah, no problem. Worship Shaitan, no problem. Worship Jesus, no problem. Let people worship whatever they like. But no Muslim will accept that. No Muslim can say, look, don't worry, worship whatever you like. Hence the reason why we give dawah. Because we don't believe you can worship whatever you like. We believe that you must worship only Allah alone. And the severe consequences of the hellfire if you worship anything else besides Allah. So no Muslim will accept this. Another thing he mentions, if you're against equal rights regardless of race, sex, sexuality, or faith. So if you're against the gays having equal rights as the man and woman married couple, now they want to give equal rights to the gays, to the puffs. And to the extent they want to even allow them to adopt children. Subhanallah. And if you speak out against homosexuality, you got signs of extremism. This is what they want to push. They want to push to the extent where you are afraid to say homosexuality is wrong. Homosexuality is a sin. Obviously, in their society, this is acceptable behavior. This is acceptable behavior. And so you can't discriminate. You must see them as on an equal level as to the one who fears Allah and abstains from this. No Muslim will accept this. But you see, this is what they try to do. They try to put pressure on the Muslim community to say otherwise. To the extent, one of the masjids, so-called masjid prayer halls, down the road, it says, we will not allow any homophobic imam in the masjid. But I'm sure deep down, when you speak one-to-one, they'll tell you, look, obviously we know Islam is against this homosexuality, but we've got to say it. There's pressure from the government. If you don't say that, they're going to say this message is preaching hate. You see? So out of that pressure and that fear, they're having, obviously it still gives no valid excuse to say that. But this is what the kuffar are doing, to put pressure on the Muslim community to change their beliefs, to change their aqidah, to change their understanding of Islam. And this, my dear Muslims, to sum up, this is what you call ideological warfare. This in itself is ideological warfare. And the one thing, obviously, the kuffar won't say that. The kuffar won't say, we are in an ideological warfare with the Muslim. They don't have the guts to say it, but essentially that is what they are trying to attack. Core Islamic values, Islamic beliefs. Obviously, that is the ideological warfare, my dear Muslim. But as well as that, we see abroad they are engaging in a military warfare against the Muslims. From Iraq, Afghanistan, from Syria, from Mali, Yemen, from Burma, all over the world, in a war to defeat Islam and the Muslims. And obviously they're losing on both fronts. But here in the UK, they are having this ideological warfare to challenge the Muslims on their belief system. And the reason why they want to do that is so for you to change your deen. And when I say change your deen, don't think to yourself they want to make you Christian. That's not what they're after. That they just want to make you Christian. Or they're saying, they're not coming to the Muslim and saying, leave Islam. Islam is not good. They're not saying that. Rather, how they're trying to make us change our deen and leave our deen is by infiltrating contaminants in our deen, by contaminating our deen. So the extent where the Muslim, he thinks he's still following the pure Islam, but in fact he's not. He's become secular. He says he's Muslim, but he says Sharia is backwards. So he thinks he's still following following Islam, but he's given up parts of Islam, and he has accepted the kufr and the shirk. So he says he's democratic Muslim now. So he thinks he's still following the Islam, the pure Islam that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came with, but in fact he has compromised to the extent he's indeed following the kufr and the shirk. So then he says he believes in democracy. He believes in a freedom of speech. And that is how they're trying to make Muslims into secular people. And Allah subhanahu mentions about this in the reference it says here, they wish for you to compromise. Surah 68 verse 9. They wish that you compromise with them so they too would compromise with you. And this is one of the ways, my dear Muslims, they want to corrupt the believers by making us compromise. To say, be fearful of saying, look, yeah, I'm a Muslim, I believe this. They're putting that fear that, look, if you say that, then we're going to label you. And he thinks, well, I don't want to be labeled as a hate preacher. I don't want to be labeled as an extremist. I don't want to be labeled an Islamist. I don't want my face all over the paper. I don't want the message to get shut down, etc. So out of that, he thinks, well, let me just compromise a bit of give and take. And he ends up cutting off parts of his own deen. Another verse, famous verse we mention again and again, Surah 2, verse 120. That never will the Jews and Christians be pleased with you. It's not my words, yeah. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Never will the Jews and Christians be pleased with you until you follow their millah, their religion or their way of life. Say, verily the guidance of Allah is the only guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, tell them that verily the guidance of Allah is the only guidance. So no integration, no compromise there. And if you were to follow their desires after what is received of knowledge, then you would indeed against Allah have no protector or any helper. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that the Jews and Christians, the disbelievers, they will try to make us follow their own way of life. What is their own way of life? Democracy is their own way of life. British values is their own way of life. Freedom is their own way of life. Secularism is their own way of life. And rather, we should be saying to them, no, the only way of life is Islam. The only way of life acceptable is Islam. And so, my dear Muslims, obviously, this is what they want to. They want to create these versions of Islam, British Islam. They want to create different types of Muslim, democratic Muslim, secular Muslim, homosexual Muslim, transvestite Muslim. They want to create all these Muslims that, yeah, you can be Muslim and you still believe in these type of stuff. To the extent you think you're following Islam, and in fact you're not. Instead, in fact, you're following the kufr and the shirk. And that's what, Bismillah. Don't cough while holding the cup. So David Cameron, the Taghut, he wants us to follow a perverted version of Islam. This is the term they come out with, the law, innit? These people, they have a perverted version of Islam. But in fact, this is what he wants us to follow, a perverted version of Islam. Because he's a pervert. And this has come out now all over the media, how much of a pervert he is. SubhanAllah, even the pigs ain't safe from the... even the animals ain't safe from the evil of these kuffar. And this is what David Cameron and his cronies, this term I like to use. I'm going to make up my own term. Seeing that everyone else is making up their own term, they're trying to brain dirty our youth. Oh, I don't want to use the term brainwash. Because Allah Sheikh said, to wash something is good. If I put my thobe in the washing machine, and what comes out wash is good. If you wash the brain, comes out clean, alhamdulillah, it's a good thing. Wash all the rubbish that we've been taught when we were young. All the kufr we've been taught in the school, all the rubbish that we watched on the TV, of the kuffar channels, etc. Now we can wash all that out with some good aqeedah, good tawheed, Islam, inshallah. But they want to corrupt the understanding and of the Muslims, especially of our youth. So they want us to believe, so follow an Islam which has no dawah. Follow an Islam which has no commanding good and forbidding evil. Follow an Islam which does not believe in fighting and jihad. Follow an Islam that doesn't have a concept of Izharuddin, of domination of the world by Islam. Follow a version of Islam that has no concept that Sharia must be implemented. And they do that, my dear Muslim, in order for us to make us be part of them, to be on their side, to be their cheerleaders, to be part of their police, their army, and to be their chamche. Chamche, okay, that's a Urdu word, to be their bootlicker. That's what they want us to be their bootlicker. Like you had many bootlickers, who used to fight with the British Army during the Second World War, during the First World War. And people, they would come out and say, look, my great-grandfather, so proudly, he used to fight with the British. As if say some kind of praise. This is humiliation. this fool on Twitter, trying to debate with me. He's standing outside 10 Downing Street, claimed to be Muslim. I said to him, humiliation is you standing outside the front door of the Taghut and taking a selfie. That's humiliation. Subhanallah. That is ideological warfare, my dear Muslims. Obviously, the war to corrupt Islam, to fight the Muslims, is on many fronts. And obviously we know about the military warfare. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about this in Surah Baqarah verse 217. It starts off by saying, they ask you about fighting in the sacred months. Say fighting within it is a great sin. With Allah is to fighting within is a great transgression. But a greater transgression with Allah is to prevent mankind from following the way of Allah, to disbelieve in Him, to prevent access to Masjid al-Haram, and to drive its inhabitants. And fitna is worse than killing. Here the verse fitna means shirk. And they will never cease fighting you until they turn you back from your religion, if they can. And whoever turns back from his religion and dies as a disbeliever, then his deeds will be lost in this life and in the hereafter. And they will be the dwellers of the fire, and they will abide therein forever. So obviously, my dear Muslims, essentially what it comes down to, they want to make us kafir like them. That's what it comes down to. So we end up absorb the kufr concepts, kufr ideas, to give up the Islamic ideology. So in conclusion, do you think I'm an extremist? Do you label me as extremist? I don't call myself an extremist, because the term itself, it does not have a good meaning, because we don't want to go beyond the limit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. We don't want to have ghulu, we don't have to have exaggeration. We don't want to have make things responsible upon ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never made responsible. And obviously, my dear Muslim, I'm sure the kuffar, they will say, based on what they've heard here today, they will say this man is an extremist. I'm sure many of them will say that. And my question, and what? Okay, you don't like me. So this is my belief as a Muslim. We're not breaking any laws. We're not telling anyone to go and kill anyone. We just say we disagree with you. We don't like democracy. We think democracy is hypocrisy, as we've been saying for years. We don't believe in British values. We believe in Islamic values. We don't believe in freedom of speech. We believe in only saying things that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you see, they want to, this is why, my dear Muslim, they get upset. And they want to counter this ideology of the Muslims. And that's why, the reason why I mention about this is because sadly, we are losing many of our brothers and sisters because of this attack on the Muslim ideology. Because of that attack on the Sharia, on Islam. That Islam, or that Sharia is something barbaric, or something unacceptable, something that is bad. So many people, because of the constant pressure day and night from these organizations like the Prevent strategy. What are they trying to prevent? They're trying to prevent Islam. The true Islam that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came with. That's what they want to prevent. The secular Islam, no problem. The British Islam, no problem. They want to prevent the true Islam that we're all trying to follow. This is what they're trying to challenge. Like I said, because of this pressure from the attack, that if you believe these things and you say these things, we're going to give you these labels. We're going to give you these labels, and we're going to tarnish your image. We're going to tarnish your name. We're going to put you all over the media. We're going to come and we're going to question you. We're going to arrest you. We're going to make threats to you, threats of imprisonment, threats of arrest, unless you give up these views. And sadly, like I said, many of our brothers and sisters, many of our youth especially, because of that ongoing pressure from the kuffar, they have started saying even to the words of kufr. Rather than standing firm and say, I'm a Muslim, this is what I believe. Like, take it or leave it. Like it or not. Not my problem. I'm a Muslim, this is what I believe. And I'm not going to change it to please you. Now, if you think I'm an extremist, I'm a fanatic, whatever, so be it. But this is what I believe, and this is what the Muslim community, the Muslims all around the world, they need to stand firm for what they believe. And they need to not be scared to say, this is wrong. This is against the teaching of Islam. You see? So, my dear Muslims, this is my reminder to all the Muslims that to stand firm for Islam in these tough times where there is so much pressure on the Muslims, so much pressure on the Muslims to come out and to apologize for stuff, to be apologetic all the time, as if the kuffar, they are innocent. Stand firm for Islam, stand firm for your belief, and never change and never compromise. You see, because you could end up going down the road where you end up becoming apostate. Because you fear the kuffar and you fear what they will think, and you end up changing your own deen to fit in with them and their belief. Remember, always you are here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life. Always keep inshallah, keep your mind focused on that objective. I'm here to please Allah. If what I say, what I do is pleasing to Allah, that's all that matters. That's all that matters, you see. And obviously, the enemies of Islam, they will always have this hatred towards the believers and try to tarnish their image. They're trying to tarnish the image of Islam day and night. They see more and more people are embracing Islam every day, and they don't know how to stop it. They're trying to tarnish Islam's image and say this is a barbaric religion, this is a religion of bloodshed, etc. But many people, they're seeing through their lies of the kuffar and their propaganda, and they say, no, Islam indeed is a religion of truth, religion of justice. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all firm and able to stand firm for what we believe, and to always to speak the word of truth, and to be sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and never to compromise on our deen, inshallah. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he'll be inshallah be pleased with us, and inshallah give us the Jannah, inshallah, and let the kuffar go to hell, bro. This is it's my short reminder from Ustad Abu Izzidin, subhanallah. It brings subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help all the Muslims and to protect them, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, bros.